My 13-year-old niece laughed and told me, "Mom says if you vanished tomorrow, nobody would even notice," while unwrapping the $850 phone I bought her. Surrounded by 30 relatives who joined in mocking laughter, I quietly shut down every payment, bill, and credit line I had ever covered for them, left behind a mysterious backpack, and walked away from my family forever. My 13-year-old niece laughed, a sharp sound. "Mom says, if you vanished tomorrow, nobody would even notice." As she unwrapped the $850 phone I purchased for her, all 36 guests joined in the laughter, except for me. I simply nodded. With 2 swift taps, I initiated the shutdown of every payment, credit line, bill, and subscription I maintained. Erased. That very evening, I departed, severed all connections, and disappeared, leaving only a dark backpack in my wake. Inside, they would discover. "Mom says, if you vanished tomorrow, nobody would even notice." My 13-year-old niece chuckled, peeling the protective film from the costly phone I'd given her. Her touch was light, but her words cut deeper than any blade. Around us, the living room hummed with the noisy conversation of my family. A gathering of 30 voices, each one too loud, too unconcerned. A birthday cake sat waiting in the kitchen, its candles unlit, yet a silent fire already consumed me. My sister, Lindsay, didn't even glance up from her phone. She sat on the sofa, a small, satisfied smirk playing on her lips, like a judge receiving a favorable verdict. Mom, busy stirring something in the kitchen, pretended not to overhear, but I caught the subtle rise of her shoulders, a silent gesture of approval. Dad made no effort to conceal his amusement. He chuckled, raised his beer, and mumbled, "Well, she isn't wrong." A wave of laughter swept through the room. My cousins grinned, and even Uncle Gary, whose knowledge of me barely extended beyond the occasional holiday meal, snorted into his drink. I remained standing there, feeling utterly foolish. The perpetually exploited, the constant troubleshooter, the one who is never quite enough. "Thanks for the phone, Uncle," my niece chirped, already nestled against her mother's side, absorbed in the glowing display. I watched her. My heart pounded, my face grew hot, and suddenly the room felt constricting, suffocating. But I spoke no protest. I merely nodded, as was my custom, always nodding, always smiling, always feigning. Then Lindsay finally met my gaze. In that moment, I saw a flicker of satisfaction, of amusement, as if she had anticipated this very scene, my silent, humiliated stillness. "All right, everyone, time to cut the cake." Mom's voice rang out, bright and jovial, attempting to disperse the tension. But the bitter aftertaste clung to my tongue, thick and unpleasant. I moved to the kitchen, leaning against the counter as they gathered. Candles flickered, wishes were whispered, and I simply observed, my hands clenching into fists. My jaw tightened, and beneath the ache, something cold began to take root. My phone felt heavy in my pocket, just 2 quick presses. Every bill, every subscription, every credit facility I had established for them, for Lindsay, for Mom, for Dad, dissolved. My fingers moved instinctively, a decision I hadn't consciously made until it was complete. Terminated. Just like that, the surrounding voices blurred into a distant drone. The room seemed to undulate around me, a sea of familiar faces that now appeared utterly foreign. They laughed, they cheered, they celebrated, and I was no longer truly present. I had been a ghost with a wallet, but no longer. I slipped away unnoticed. Naturally, they wouldn't. That was the one truth my niece spoke that night. I didn't go home. I drove directly to my apartment, gathered a few necessities into a small travel bag, then returned. The dark backpack, old and nearly forgotten in my closet, had found its purpose that evening. I filled it, not with my belongings, nor with anything they might expect. Then I went back. The house remained a noisy chaos. No one observed me entering, walking down the hall, or placing the backpack by the stairs. And then I was truly gone. By the time they took notice, I would be a mere phantom. But inside that backpack, let them discover its contents. let them strive to comprehend. The quiet didn't endure for long. I had anticipated panic, outrage, but what erupted was an explosion. It began the following morning. I awoke to a furious pounding on my apartment door. No phone calls, no polite taps, just fists hammering the wood. "Open up. You think you can just do this?" Dad's voice, loud and enraged. I remained still, watching the door shudder, as if it might give way. "I know you're in there. You think you're clever? You think you're superior to us." His voice fractured, not solely with fury, but with something else. Fear. I maintained my silence. I refused to engage in this charade. Eventually, the hammering ceased. I heard his heavy footsteps retreat, a muffled curse, and the decisive slam of his car door. But it wasn't finished. Far from it. 20 minutes later, my phone vibrated. A text from Mom. A single line. "How could you do this to your own family?" I offered no reply. An hour later, Lindsay attempted contact. This time, a call. I observed her name flashing on the screen, letting it ring. Then another and another. 6 consecutive calls. Finally, a message. "You think you're so smart? You think we can't survive without you? Fine. See how long you last without a family." I read it and smiled. Was that intended as a threat or a promise? But the true tempest arrived that evening. I was just stepping out of the shower when I heard a key in the lock. I froze. No one should possess a key to my residence. No one except. The door burst open. Dad stormed in, flushed and perspiring. Mom was right behind him, her eyes wide with panic. "You think you can just bar me from my own son's place?" Dad roared. "Get out," I stated, my voice composed yet cold. "Get out. Get out. This is what you've become." Mom's voice was shrill, almost frantic. "Abandoning your own family. We raised you. You exploited me," I corrected, leaning against the kitchen counter, still toweling my hair. "There's a distinction." Dad advanced, his fist clenched. "You ungrateful little troublemaker." "Try it." The words escaped before I could fully consider them. Calm, firm, a challenge. His hand trembled, but it didn't move. We both understood the truth. He was no brawler. Never had been. He was a bully who hid behind words, who shouted to mask his own fear. "What did you do?" Mom's voice broke. "The cards don't work. Lindsay can't pay her bills. The mortgage. It's all gone." "That's correct," I nodded. "Everything I paid for. Everything I managed. It's over." Dad let out a bitter, joyless laugh. "Oh, you think you're so potent? You think we need you?" "It appears you do," I shrugged. "Given you broke into my apartment merely to beg." "Beg?" He snarled. "You think we're begging? You think." "Enough," I snapped, the word cutting through his rant. "Enough. I am finished." Mom stepped forward, her hands extended. "Please, this is your family. We're all we have." "All you have," I corrected. "I'm done being your safety net. Your resource. Your doormat." Dad's face contorted. "You little pest." I raised a finger. "Leave now." "You can't do this," Mom whispered, tears welling up. "This is cruel." "Cruel?" I laughed. "Cruel is telling your son he's worthless, while squandering his money. Cruel is treating me as a tool and ridiculing me behind my back." Dad stepped forward again, but I didn't recoil. This time he halted. His shoulders sagged. "You'll regret this," he muttered. "You'll come crawling back." "I won't," I declared, my voice like steel. They left, slamming the door shut. But as I listened to their footsteps fade, I knew this was not the end. The following day, they attempted a different approach. Lindsay appeared at my office. I observed her through the glass, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. My boss seemed bewildered, then uncomfortable as she began waving at me. I remained at my desk. "Sir, there's a woman here," the receptionist said. "She's nobody," I replied, without looking up. But Lindsay didn't depart. I watched her conversing with the receptionist, her voice rising, her hands shaking. Then security intervened, escorting her out. I knew she would return. That night, another knock. My landlord. There's a bit of a situation, he shifted awkwardly. Your family is downstairs causing a disturbance. Instruct them to leave, or I'll contact the authorities, I told him. He blinked. But it's your family. No, I clarified. Not anymore. I watched from my window as they stood there shouting, gesticulating, until security finally led them away. But I understood them. I knew their tenacity. And I knew that somewhere in the house I'd abandoned, a dark backpack awaited, waiting for them to open it. To grasp the extent of my resolve. The silence didn't last. I knew them too well. Silence was merely the lull before the tempest. For days, I ignored their calls, their messages, their desperate voicemails. I even skipped work, letting the world recede as I savored the quiet. But I wasn't foolish. I knew they wouldn't surrender. It began with Lindsay's outbursts, messages steeped in venom, blaming me for everything. Mom's tearful voicemails followed, her voice cracking as she implored me to be the forgiving one and salvage the family. And then came Dad. Initially, it was rage, threats, insults, the usual clamor. But then his tone shifted. Calm, calculated, an invitation. Son, let's resolve this like men. No drama, just you and me. There's a game this weekend. Our team is playing. Come, let's discuss it. A trap. I felt it in my very bones. But I consented. I wanted this confrontation. So I went. But when I saw the deserted seats surrounding him and the dark backpack clutched in his hands, I knew my suspicions were correct. They didn't seek peace. They sought control. But I was no longer the same naive individual who had stood in that living room, nodding and feigning agreement. Not anymore. The stadium roared like a colossal beast. Cheers, shouts, the rhythmic thud of feet on metal bleachers. It was pandemonium, an ideal setting for secrets to vanish. Dad waited in section 12, row F, the seats around him vacant despite the sold-out game. He spotted me instantly, waving with one hand, the other tightly gripping the dark backpack. My backpack. I descended the steps, each stride steady, my gaze fixed on him. He appeared exhilarated, a twisted smile curving his lips, as if he believed he had triumphed. Surprised I called you? He yelled over the din, patting the seat beside him. Finally decided to talk like men. Talk. I settled into the seat, my eyes never leaving the backpack on his lap. Is that what this is? Oh, I think it's a bit more than that, he leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You thought you were so clever, didn't you? Running away, cutting us off. But you left a small gift behind. His fingers drummed against the backpack. We discovered this. And guess what, genius? We know. Know what? I inquired, keeping my voice as calm as the chill wind that swept across the field. Your secrets, your deceptions. You believe you're untainted? That you're superior to us? His voice sharpened. You've been concealing things. I should have realized. All those times you acted like a saint, like some savior. I almost chuckled. Then open it. Let's see what you think you know. His eyes flashed with a mix of apprehension and fury. Don't play games. I don't need to open it. I already know you've been embezzling from us, manipulating, pretending to be a good son while hoarding your little stash. Stash. I leaned back, feeling the cold metal of the seat. The only stash in there is the truth. The crowd around us erupted as the home team scored. But here, in our small sphere of conflict, there was only silence, tension, and a trembling hand on the backpack. You're bluffing, he muttered. You're trying to make me doubt, but it's finished. We're telling everyone what kind of person you truly are, how you abandoned your family. Go ahead, I gestured toward the field. Tell them all. Tell them how I financed Lindsay's rent for 2 years. How I settled your debts when you gambled away half your retirement. How I purchased that phone for your beloved granddaughter just before she declared I was worthless. His face darkened. Shut up. No, let's be clear, Dad. You possess a bag filled with evidence of everything I did for you and everything you took. And you still believe you have an advantage? His hand tightened around the backpack, his knuckles white. Don't you speak to me like that. Like what? I leaned forward, my voice still calm, but my eyes burning. Like the insignificant object you always treated me as. Like the walking ATM, the errand boy. Shut up, he shouted, standing, drawing a few curious glances from the rows behind us. Sit down. My voice was glacial, and for a moment I saw it, the fear in his eyes. He despised me, but more than that, he feared losing his authority. Or what? He forced a laugh, thin and desperate. What are you going to do? Assault your own father? You think anyone here will take your side? Do you truly think they'll take yours? I gestured to the crowd, the multitude of strangers who cared nothing for his bluster. You're just an irate old man with a bag full of debts. And they don't know me, but they don't have to. His face contorted, his voice dropping to a snarl. You egoist. Egoist. I smiled. I was your lifeline. And now you're drowning without me.
He swung.
I saw it coming. His hand, thick and trembling, aimed for my face. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. He sought a reaction, a public scene, proof that I was the villain in his narrative. But I simply stared at him, composed, unblinking, and his fist stopped mere inches from my face, trembling. I should have left you on the streets, he whispered, his voice shaking. You were always a leech. Funny, I whispered back, leaning so close I could detect the stale beer on his breath. That's precisely what I thought about you. Something inside him shattered. His hand fell. His shoulders slumped. The cheers of the crowd grew deafening, a perfect cover for the collapse of any remaining pride he possessed. I reached out, seized the backpack, and yanked it from his grasp. He offered no resistance. Do you wish to know what's inside? I asked, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Everything I did for you. Every ounce, every sacrifice. People were now staring, some whispering, some pointing. A few even had their phones raised. You desire the truth? I unzipped the backpack, extracting a thick stack of papers. There it is. Proof of how I supported you, how I paid your bills, how I saved your house from foreclosure twice. His face drained of color. And you want to speak of betrayal? I stood, holding the papers high. You betrayed me the day you transformed me into your personal ATM. The day you laughed when they told me I was nothing. Stop, he whispered, his voice small, his body sinking into the seat. No, you wanted a spectacle. You got one. I tossed the papers at his feet, and they scattered, fluttering down the steps like fallen leaves. I turned, ascending the steps, past the staring faces, past the murmurs. You can't just leave, he shouted, his voice cracking. But I didn't pause. I didn't look back. For the first time, his voice held no meaning for me. They never stopped trying. Not initially. The day after the stadium, the day Dad's pride bled out on those cold metal seats, my phone rang relentlessly, like an alarm. Call after call. Messages poured in. Accusations, pleas, threats. A relentless cycle of desperation wrapped in their familiar voices. I ignored it all. Dad was the first to yield. His calls shifted from furious to pleading within hours. We can discuss this, he lied. I'll forget everything. Let's be a family. But I didn't answer. Then it was Mom. Her messages saturated with guilt. You're breaking our hearts. We didn't mean it. Family is all we have. I didn't even bother reading them all. Lindsay attempted next. Her messages were pure venom. You're a coward. A selfish, worthless coward. You've ruined everything. Then, please just talk to me. I didn't mean it. I was scared. Don't do this. But I did. Silence. That was my reply. That was my retribution. They didn't grasp it at first. They thought I was bluffing, playing some cruel game. But as days stretched into weeks, as the bills they once disregarded began to mount, as their acquaintances ceased taking sides, they finally understood. They couldn't reach me. The landlord at their house contacted me, stammering, trying to explain their unpaid rent. I informed him that was not my concern. Mom sent me a photograph of the family sitting in darkness, a single candle flickering on the table. We have nothing left. I deleted it without a second glance. One evening, as I walked back from the grocery store, I saw him, Dad, standing outside my building, pacing like a madman. His face was pale, his hands trembling, that familiar fire in his eyes replaced by something else.
Fear.
He saw me, his face lighting up with a twisted hope. He rushed forward. Listen, you can't do this. You're my son. I didn't slow my pace. I was your wallet. He stepped in front of me, his voice cracking. We raised you. We gave you everything. You used me. I looked him directly in the eyes. And now you possess nothing. I tried to step around him, but his hand shot out, grabbing my arm. You don't get to do this. His voice was a snarl, the old anger resurfacing. You think you're better than us? You think you can just walk away? I know I can. I pulled my arm free, and I did. He swung at me, slow, feeble. I didn't even flinch. His fist grazed my shoulder, more a desperate shove than a punch. He stumbled, catching himself against the side of the building, gasping. Pathetic, the words slipped out like a breath. His face contorted, that familiar rage flaring. You'll come crawling back. You always do. You're nothing without us. I laughed, a loud, sharp sound that echoed down the quiet street. I was nothing with you, I said, turning my back. I walked away. I didn't look back. That night, I tossed my phone into the bottom drawer of my desk and left it there. The messages, the missed calls, they accumulated, but they couldn't reach me. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. Handwritten, shaky script.
Mom, please.
Your father is falling ill. Lindsay is losing her mind. We're disintegrating. You're the only one who can repair this. Please come home. I crumpled it without reading further. They were falling apart. Good, because for the first time I didn't relocate. I didn't alter my number. I didn't conceal myself. I remained precisely where I was, but I ceased being a component of their world. And their world disintegrated without me. Lindsay's friends stopped returning her calls. Mom's distant relatives, who once sent polite holiday cards, now ignored her. Dad, he lost his temper at work too many times and was terminated. But I didn't care. I didn't observe. I lived. I cooked for myself, slept peacefully, went for long walks without fretting over incoming messages demanding my time, my finances, my existence.
They were merely voices now.
Phantoms I'd abandoned in a burning house, and I was liberated. Months passed, and silence became a companion. I woke when I wished, ate meals without a hint of guilt. I spent weekends exploring the city I'd once overlooked, discovering freedom in every tranquil moment. Sometimes I still catch myself anticipating the familiar vibration of desperate messages, the oppressive guilt, the frantic voice demanding I rectify their disorder. But it never came. I had achieved the impossible. I had buried them. Not in the ground, but in my life. I strolled down Main Street one crisp autumn morning, past the cafe where I'd bought expensive cakes for Lindsay's birthdays, the boutique where I'd squandered a fortune on gifts, the restaurant where I'd covered family dinners, where I was always so generous until I wasn't.
Ghosts.
Merely ghosts. On the corner, a street musician played a slow, poignant melody. His voice was raw, his fingers dancing over the strings. A voice that didn't aspire to perfection, only honesty. I stopped, allowing the music to envelop me. It spoke not of love, nor of sorrow. It spoke of release. The world moved around me, bustling and vibrant. I stood still, absorbing it. When the song concluded, I dropped a $20 bill into the open guitar case. The musician nodded, and I smiled. Not from obligation, not because someone expected it, but because I truly wanted to. And that was the fundamental change. I didn't require them. I never had. I continued my walk, each step lighter, each breath easier. As the sun dipped beneath the rooftops, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson, I felt it, a quiet certainty. I was free.